For more on this, I want to bring in Lucas Toffoli. He's the manager of the nonprofit RMI Carbon Free Buildings Program. Welcome to the show. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we had the Inflation Reduction Act, which was really there was quite a bit of green initiatives in there. And when you look at the buildings, and we just talked about 2/3 of it, coming from buildings, is there items in that Reduction Act signed by the White House that would help New York and, quite frankly, other states get to its goals?
Yeah, there are important items in the Inflation Reduction Act, and thanks for having me on the program, by the way. There are several tax-related changes that allow incentives for energy-efficient interventions in buildings. There's also some funds that are allocated to the Defense Production Announcement Act, the Defense Production Act announcement made by President Biden earlier this year that are still being directed or clarified towards some of those types of interventions that could be in buildings, including potentially heat pumps and insulation.
I was reading on how they measure green or efficiency, and a lot of it has to do with the amount of electricity a building uses. So if a building is more dense, it obviously uses more electricity because there's more of us in the building. But when a building is, say, half empty, it uses significantly less electricity because there's less people there. And there are critics that say that needs to be addressed, that how we measure if a building is green or not green, we throw those words around like we're experts, but certainly we're not experts at this. We just want to do things that are better for the earth. What improvements can be made in sort of that regulatory framework?
Yeah, so measurement is often done on a energy intensity per square foot basis. There could be factors taken into account for density of use or occupancy. An occupancy percentage is a typical metric used in the real estate industry. So there could be cross applications there to kind of weigh the energy intensity of a building relative to its occupancy. So those are some of the adjustments that could be made, but really what it comes down to is decarbonizing the entire building sector. So whatever energy we're using in any building doesn't have or has a minimal carbon footprint to it. And the way that we do that is by electrifying the end uses, but first reducing them through energy efficiency so that we have an easier time of electrification and the electrification interventions are more compatible with a stable and sustainable grid that also needs to be greened.
This particular topic has been dealt with for more than a couple decades now, and I was recently down in Southern California, and I had a chance to see some buildings that a lot of them had solar panels, they had sort of grass on top, they had all kinds of things they've worked on to help reduce the carbon footprint. And I'm wondering, why haven't we seen more, I guess, things like solar panels on glass windows, which are on all buildings? Why don't we see more solar panels on top of buildings? Wouldn't that help get us to our goal sooner?
Certainly, and we're increasingly seeing solar panels on top of buildings, and in states like California, there's actually regulatory changes that are going to require that for a lot of buildings. In terms of seeing solar photovoltaic production on glass or on building facades, I think that comes down to maturity of technology, but there are technologies that exist today and that are becoming more mature and more cost-effective that can be used in those kinds of applications, whether it's on the transparent envelope like windows or the opaque envelope like the non-window areas of building facades. There are a number of companies working in those areas. Some are doing flexible solar panels, some are doing rigid solar panels. There are some interesting projects in which actually cladding has been replaced with solar panels, so you're getting additional savings by not having to buy the conventional cladding materials and replacing them with solar panels. But there are a lot of other interventions, some of them less visible in buildings,
right,
having to do with energy efficiency to get us to that building decarbonization goal, which of course has a lot of other co-benefits beyond the energy savings, which we're seeing in more and more ways with extreme weather and global conflict, all having implications for energy and energy efficiency.
Right. We recently ran a story. Of course, Europe is dealing with this shortage or the high prices of natural gas, which is going to affect both air conditioning and heating, whether it's summer or winter. And there was discussion of, okay, we're going to raise the temperature, we're going to reduce the use of HVAC, if you will. But there are some real simple things, as you just said, simply like motion sensors. You walk into a room, lights come on. You walk out, they automatically turn off. I am surprised that every single building doesn't have this type of technology in it. But my question to you is, what are some simple things that we can learn either from the US or Europe that can be enacted everywhere, that's easy to install?
Sure. Well, demand controls, like what you mentioned for lighting, there are similar applications for HVAC where you have automatic setbacks depending on occupancy, or even that can automatically track and even predict outdoor temperature and weather and kind of adjust accordingly. So those are fairly straightforward interventions that are happening in a lot of buildings, more so on the commercial and hospitality side. I do think in order to really tackle the full building decarbonization challenge and do that in a way that is compatible with a stable grid, there are going to need to be some deeper interventions in some buildings, including overhauls of mechanical systems, as well as interventions on the envelope to increase the passive efficiency of buildings through things like greater insulation and air sealing. And those things also have pretty substantial co-benefits. For example, if the power goes out during a long cold snap, like we've seen in places even like Texas that are considered to be fairly mild or hot climates, there's actually life safety benefits to that because you can maintain a safe temperature in the building for a longer period of time.
Lucas, I suspect that you're going to be getting more and more requests for your advice and help. We appreciate your time on the show and helping us better understand, how to help these buildings and help each other live a more carbon-free footprint. Lucas, thank you very much from the Carbon Free Buildings program. Excellent stuff.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excellent stuff there. And that